Good evening and welcome to Center State Bank Tuesday. The Buddy Martin Show starts right now.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
What if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to the Buddy Martin Show on a Center State Bank Tuesday in a hot Ocala, Florida. Whew, and me with these long sleeves on. I just couldn't resist this gear, though, I got from All Florida Sportswear. So, yeah, it's going to be a hot one for a while, and a hot one all over the football circuit these days. I'm hot about something. I'm hot about the fact that who at CBS made the decision to show a game involving the Georgia Bulldogs playing the 32-point underdog Tennessee Vols over the Florida Gators going to Starkville on Dan Mullen's return to play a nationally ranked Mississippi State Bulldogs team favored by a touchdown. The storylines you get there. What do you think of CBS? Well, today on the program, I'll ask that question of a couple of people. Up in just a moment, Tony Barnhart, who used to work at CBS, as did I. I'll get his take on where do things stand now in the SEC. The landscape changing just a little bit after last weekend. Nothing dramatic yet. We still know who the cream de la cream is. And we'll get Tony's take on a few games this weekend, his thoughts about the progression of the program at Florida under Dan Mullen, how he sees it from more of a regional influence. Tony, a nationally syndicated columnist, and of course, quite often on the SEC network with Paul Feinbaum. We'll get his take on that. Speaking of Paul Feinbaum will join us this Football Friday. We'll have him on then. And Chris Storing tomorrow night from the Ocala Quarterback Club. But finally, a guy who puts it in perspective. And by the way, if you haven't figured it out now, I'm a big golf fan. I'm going from time to time dropping in a reference to golf because that's what I like. And I'm going to get a pretty good comment from a guy who knows golf, who works on a few of the national golf broadcasts, who does his own program in Southwest Florida, David Moulton, who does the college football show on Sirius and ESPNU, and also does his own program on the program in Southwest Florida called Miller and Moulton. And then on Saturday, he's in the press box with the big guys on the CBS games. So he'll join us for the second half. Meanwhile, this is what's happening right now already in Starkville. Yep, there it is. The first reference, Dan who? What do you have to say about that, Dan who? Interesting. Is this team going to be good enough to compete with his old team? Well, we have an interesting soundbite today, which we're going to play for you later. Thanks to our producer, Chad Rich, for helping cut that bite for me. I was sort of taken with the way Dan Mullen presented his comments when asked about life in Starkville, the 9 years he was there, and what he expects to see and hear when he gets to Starkville. Think cowbell. He commented about that, and also what life is like for he and Megan in Starkville. So we'll hear that soundbite after Tony Barnhart, and we'll talk more about that. One order of business before we go to the hotline and talk to Tony. This is the night when we will know, hopefully, who gets these two tickets for the elites, who to go to Mississippi State. You can see the tickets right there. They're Bull Gator tickets. I think the price is $75 a piece. given to me to do with as I wish, and I've given 2 of them away already to Brent English, who was taking his dad. The basis for winning these tickets is in the hands of a few mods and people who are elites who are judging your work tonight and last night based on what your posts were, how they contributed to the show, or if you choose to go the other route and say, here's why I need these tickets, and you're an elite member and you haven't won before, you can go on the GNK Elite page. I'm sorry, folks, this is what they paid for. And you can state your case and say, this is why I need to have those tickets. And if you convince them, not me, I don't make the decision, you'll have those tickets. They're Bull Gator tickets, by the way, so they can't be too shabby. They will go to the winner of this competition either late tonight or tomorrow morning. So if you have a chance to go out there and you got a chance to win tickets, good luck to you. All right. Good evening to you folks out there. I see you checking in already. Jeff, Lynn. Lynn's having a conversation with somebody about times. Let's see what else we got here. 6 o'clock. I think that's 6 o'clock our time, but maybe somebody could reset. I noticed the time is set ESPN, and I'm pretty sure that's 6 o'clock our time. But someone look that up, please, if you would. I know. Good evening to Terrence and Patrick and Kurt and all you folks having a conversation before I went on air. Mark Page says 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. That's what he says. So that sounds right to me, but hey, what do I know? So that will be the time of the game on Saturday night. Yes, and good evening to you, Maristella Meyer, Nat Blaylock, David Baldoff, Philip Cooper, etc. Hello, Steve Young, and Harold and Roger from over in Ningbo, China. Roger, good to hear from you again. We're going to go right to the hotline now and talk to our friend Tony Barnhart and get his take on what he thinks is going to happen this weekend. There are only 2, really Florida, the Florida-Mississippi State game is by far the best game, by far, not even close. The rest of it's not much. I'm a little surprised that CBS didn't do something with that. But let's see if we can get a hold of Tony, and we'll get his take. Tony, Mr. College Football, and he's the guy, a guy that will tell us his thoughts about things. Let us know, folks, if the sound's okay for you. We had some complaints last night from a few of you. This would be Mr. College Football himself, I think. That would be Tony. Hello, Tony Barnhart.
Hello, Buddy Martin.
I'm good to be talking to you again, my friend.
Well, it's hard to believe we're talking about the fifth Saturday of the season.
I know.
It's mind-numbing.
Amazing, isn't it?
In August, you think it's never going to get here. August just drags on, and then once it starts, boom, you look up and it's October.
Exactly. That's what happens. One day you wake up and it's October for sure. I'm looking at the schedule. Now, I'm not going to hold you accountable for this, but I did write this as my show tease, and I said it earlier, and it's my old network and your old network. In my opinion, what were they thinking? Obviously, thinking Tennessee was better, putting Tennessee and Georgia on this game rather than Dan Mullen's return to Starkville.
I don't work for CBS anymore, so they don't consult me like they used to. My only guess is, well, first of all, what you said, that Tennessee would be better. And I looked this up before last year. The previous 6 games before last year, Georgia won 41-0 last year. Previous 6 games had been won 8 points or fewer. A bunch of 3-point games in this. You know, you had the Hail Mary in Athens 2 years ago with Joshua Dobbs, and so I'm sure that was part of that. Plus, you know, Georgia's off to a good start, and I would assume that was it. But yeah, the Dan Mullen storyline is much more compelling.
Mullen was very good, and we have a soundbite play later talking about what life was like. I'm not sure if you saw any of that on the Fun Bomb show or whatever, but it was how life was for he and Megan, and the cowbells, and what's regulation, and what's ring. He said ring responsibly. That's funny. Ring responsibly, like drink responsibly. You know, you're going to when you're out at nighttime. So. So tell me and I haven't had a chance to catch up with you, and I'm awfully glad I got a chance to do that tonight. And always, as you know, always enjoy talking football with you and reading your stuff. And you can tell folks again where to get that. I'm a subscriber, and that organization has grown quite a bit. But anyway, give me your take on things now about this program. After Kentucky, people said, wow, they lost to Kentucky. Well, Kentucky turns out a pretty darn good football team, as we found out last weekend. And now the question is, how much better is Mississippi State than Florida, if at all? So how do you – it's dangerous to do comparative scores, but you do have to acknowledge that, don't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is certainly part of it. Frankly, Kentucky just lined up and just dominated the line of scrimmage pretty much the way they did against Florida when they played Mississippi State. So Kentucky's got a good football team. They've got all the elements. I was encouraged for Florida. Now, Tennessee just basically self-destructed last week with 6 turnovers, and that was certainly a big factor in the game. But I think if I'm a Florida fan, I'm a little bit more encouraged to go on the road anywhere in this conference and win. It's a big deal, and they look much more comfortable than they did against Kentucky, and it's going to be an interesting atmosphere. Here's the question that I have, buddy, is Mississippi State's been looking forward to this game for so long. Does it impact sort of the buzz in that stadium because they basically just got kicked pretty good last week? Probably not, but I guarantee you if Mississippi State was undefeated, and right now if they were, given all the teams that lost last week, they'd be somewhere around 10 or 12 in the country. If they're 10 and 12 in the country and Florida's coming in there, that place is going to be insane. Now it's just going to probably going to be loud, but it's. I wonder if that loss has an impact.
Wow, good point. I hadn't thought about that. You've been out to Mississippi State, Stark Vegas, you know what it's like, and the cowbell tradition was one that started quite many years ago and then brought back. And they tried to regulate against it, and of course, as Mullen explained, he kind of gave an alternative. You want it this way, you want it that way. If you don't pass mine, then I'm not going to enforce the cowbell rule. So he sort of coerced some people into making that decision. What's your take on the cowbells?
The cowbells is a great tradition. Now, what you have to do is you do have to make it such that they can't ring the bell during the plays when teams are running offensive plays. Now, but between the plays, after the play, before the next play, they rock and roll. I think it's one of those, it's one of those things that add a little color, a little flavor, a little spice to SEC football. So if they do ring responsibly, buddy,
please do.
I'm all for it.
Yes. Let's talk about Tennessee for a second. I mean, granted, things went crazy, a lot of turnovers early on. Credit to, by the way, Dan Mullen's team for helping create those and to being aware of where the football was. But by the way, Tennessee just self-destructed in every way, and I know there has to be a lot of distress there right now about that, and the fact that they wanted Jeremy Pruitt didn't want to start off his SEC deal that way. So, what do you think? What is it, a dumpster fire yet in Knoxville?
Well, the issue, buddy, when you get right down to it, and it's almost always this way. When you have a coaching transition, there are a couple of things that come into play. A, what does your talent look like? Well, quite honestly, Tennessee's talent is not very good, and everybody close to the program understood that going in. Their roster just simply is not anywhere close to where it needs to be. That's number one. Number two is how long before the guys buy in to the new coach, because invariably the new coach is the polar opposite of the old coach, and that's an adjustment. I think it's fair to say that Jeremy Pruitt is the polar opposite of Butch Jones. So it's clear that some guys aren't buying in, and the question becomes how painful is that transition, and I think that's part of what Tennessee's going through right now.
Yeah, that is, and a lot was made out of by Gilmore and his partner about the fact that a coach right now, what can he do if he goes overboard, kicking the whiteboard, which was obviously something he regrets by now. By someone pointed out it was an empty whiteboard, nothing was on it. That some of the players, the older players who've been through so much, saying, here we go again. We've been through so many coaching changes. The young players might say, wow, Coach Pruitt, he's really serious about this. It's not something, it wasn't a good look in Florida when Coach Mack did it that time. It's not a good look for a new coach, in my opinion. I don't know. Is that just him not being a head coach and learning how to be a head coach?
Well, there are two ways to look at it. One is that, Coach Pruitt we've been accepting mediocrity around here for a while, and he's not going to put up with it. Mm-hmm. Or he's a first-year head coach that lost his cool. I think both are true to a certain extent. Both are true, and they don't give you a manual for this stuff, but it's not written down. Okay, you have got to find your own way as a head coach. I had a conversation today with the athletic director at Kentucky, talking about the job that Mark Stoops has done in his 5.5 years there, and about how he has grown over the years and has gotten more knowledgeable and more comfortable in his own skin as being a head coach. You got to grow into these jobs if you've never done it.
Yeah, and look, there's something about this. I've said this all my life, and you have to. Being a good coordinator does not necessarily mean a good head coach. And he did and having all the tools that he had there, and maybe he will, develop. But the other hand is, how tolerant are Tennessee fans going to be?
Well, and I've said this about a lot of different fans. If you're not tolerant, then all you're doing is you're putting yourself in a situation to keep repeating the cycle over and over and over again. Let's go back to Kentucky. Mitch Barnhart's point to me was, hey, look, after 3 years, he had gone 0-8, 2-6, and 2-6 in the SEC. All right. Now they'd say, well, you got to fire this guy, but they didn't. They could see what he was doing, what he was building, and that eventually it was going to pan out. And now they're going, assuming they get to a bowl this year, they'll be going to 3 straight bowls. Where 4 years ago they didn't know if they'd ever get to a bowl. If you don't exercise some patience, particularly when your program is down, you are doomed to repeat the cycle over and over and over.
True, but on the other hand, there's Arkansas. Chad Marks.
Arkansas, no, they're terrible.
And the Arkansas fans are getting. I heard on the sports writers today on Feinbaum's show. They're getting tired of this, At least at Florida, when bring their 4 and 7 seasons, they had a couple of titles in there, which helped out, But when you're just going week after week and year after year and saying we're going to get better, and you never do, when do you start pulling back and saying I won't change and let's get this thing right? Who is? And look, this is. I have to tell you, we know you don't get 6-7 years anymore. Like then, you basically get 2 or 3 years.
You don't get 5 anymore.
No, you don't.
Yeah, no. Well, the problem is you have to understand, if you're in a position of making decisions at Arkansas, you have made, from a philosophy standpoint, about as radical a change as you can possibly make. And guess what? The offense that the new guy wants to run, he doesn't have the personnel to do it. You can't go out and make trades and bring guys in.
No, you can't.
To run this offense, you don't have a taxi squad. You don't have free agency. You can only do it one way, and that's recruiting. Well, guess what? This guy just got the job. And with the signing day, early signing period in December, buddy, it's going to be harder than ever on the first-year head coaches. True. Because by the time they get the job, 90% of the recruits are signed.
That's so true. All right, here's the deal. Kentucky. Good story. Really good story. They stormed the field after beating Mississippi State. They got fined $100,000, okay?
Yep. I
say there's a GoFundMe fund out there. Someone take care of that. And hey, maybe I'll give $1. I don't know. I feel good for them, that they have some joy there besides just talking about their basketball team. And it's healthy. Mark Stoops has done it right, and they have had patience with Mark. He did it building blocks one at a time. And even Dan Mullen said Mark is doing at Kentucky what he did at Mississippi State. And you're right. It requires patience. But how good a story is Kentucky and Benny Snell right now?
Oh, it's a great story. I mean, I've got a story that I'm putting up on TMG tomorrow morning, TMGcollegesports.com tomorrow. I talked to Mark Stoops, I talked to Mitch Barnhart, and just about all the issues that came into play. The fact that Kentucky, what they did was after that slow start by Mark Stoops, they turned around and doubled down. They put $120 million in the Commonwealth Stadium. Now it's a nice stadium, very nice stadium to play in. Chairbacks on every seat. They built a $50 million football training workout complex that's as nice as any that you're going to see. So basically they spent $200 million on football at Kentucky because they were going to show the world they were committed to the sport, and they did. And then for them to be 4-0, 2-0 for the first time since 1977, ranked for the first time in 10 years, it's a great story.
It is a good story. It certainly is. All right, so let's talk about what other games. I don't know what to talk about. There's really not much of an SEC schedule this week. We got some games coming up. They're interesting. There's 2 or 3 circle games I know you got on your calendar that you think, and of course LSU being a good story right now too. How long is that going to go on before the bubble bursts out there? Maybe never. So the good stories from the standpoint of positive, those are 2, Kentucky, LSU. Same old stories with Georgia and obviously and Alabama. We'll see them at Texas A&M. Looks like they're better. Jury's out on South Carolina and Florida, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of games in the next couple of, let's say the next month, October is always a good month. Are there 1 or 2 games that you're going to really be interested to see?
Oh, absolutely. Georgia goes to LSU on October 13th. I think that has a chance to be a fascinating game. LSU's in a situation, they got Ole Miss. They got to go to Florida next week, but if they somehow get past those 2 games and Georgia and LSU are undefeated in Baton Rouge, that has a chance to be a pretty good game, I think. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Alabama, they're not going to get challenged before they play LSU. Auburn is a team that I'm watching a lot. They're going to take care of Southern Mississippi this weekend, but then they go to Starkville on October 6th. The Auburn people are not happy. They have not looked good offensively. It's amazing, though. If the LSU kicker misses the 42-yard field goal, Auburn's undefeated and everything's fine. Yeah. But because the kid made the field goal, now everybody's stupid and no good. It's amazing how fans think sometimes. But Auburn is struggling offensively because they can't run the ball the way they've run it in the past. They've got to get that figured out. But those are a couple of games I've definitely got my eye on in October.
Yeah, those are good ones. Tony, Gator fans here online want to know, give your assessment, true assessment of where Florida is right now. And by the way, Jarrett Stidham's not having a Heisman year at this point in time.
Nope.
Talk about what you know. I know you follow the league pretty closely. You don't watch every film clip, but what are the things you see in the Florida program that you think are positives? How good is this team now, and where do you think Dan Mullen can take them?
Well, listen, a couple of things. One, and I've said this all along, Florida from a talent standpoint, I don't see that many real difference makers. I don't see any Percy Harvins or Ike Hilliards or Riedel Anthony's. I don't see a whole lot. Fred Taylor's, Eric Retz. I don't see a whole lot of those guys. I see good SEC players, but first of all, I think from a recruiting standpoint, they got to go out and get some dynamic football players, great football players, difference makers. That's the thing with Kentucky. You look at Kentucky's roster from Benny Snell to Josh Allen to Lynn Bowden to on and on. They've got guys who can make plays. So Florida's got to do that. The good news for Florida is that Felipe Franks is going to be a better quarterback. He's going to get better. He has physical skills, and he's going to be well coached. Florida's going to be a well coached team, and it's going to start with the quarterback. So the future looks good because Dan has as good a reputation as anybody of recruiting and, more importantly, developing quarterbacks. But right now, I'm just telling you, buddy, I look at that roster, and I look at Georgia's roster and Alabama's roster and Auburn's roster and LSU's roster. Florida does not have the talent that those teams have.
Okay, there's a few names in there. You've heard about the wide receivers. Obviously, they're terrific. The transfers, and they're really good players. But let me tell you about a couple of players that are difference makers on this team that use names. You need to check these people out. David Reese, the linebacker. You know about him. He's far beyond more valuable than I thought he was. He was the difference. Being in the game the other night, he made a heck of a difference. And Shootle, the transfer from West Virginia, showed up because he had support on that side. There's a kid named coming up named Damian Pierce, a running back. He's taken to the house twice already. He was a fourth-string running back. Now he's going to get more reps. Check him out. C.J. Henderson right now is as good a cover guy as there is in the league anywhere. So check those guys out. They're not 5 stars, but they're playing really good football right now, and their receiving core does have a lot of depth if Franks can get the ball to him. So that's that. Now, I'm not blowing smoke. I'm just telling you a couple of things to watch for because I know you don't watch every play. And now, are they a match for Georgia? No, they're not. Not at this point in time, no question. But I want to see some more improvement. Let's see what they do in terms of Mississippi State. Any thoughts about how the game may come out in Starkville on Saturday night?
It's going to come down to quarterback play. Nick Fitzgerald did not play well last week against Kentucky. He is such a big, important part of their offense. Now, they've got a couple of really good running backs. Harris Williams, Kieran Hill are both very, very good, but it really, with Mississippi State, it comes down to quarterback play. Same thing for Florida. Felipe Franks, if he throws a couple of picks, 3 picks, that puts them in a hole, and that's what I think the game is going to come down to. And here's the other thing. Kentucky was able to run the ball surprisingly well, I thought, against that Mississippi State defensive front. They got a couple of pros up there. Can Florida run the ball effectively against those guys? If you can, then that's a big, big key to beat.
Yeah, big question. I'm not sure they can, but I do think the offensive line's gotten better, and their passing game is getting better. Well, it'll be competitive. I think it will be competitive. But, Tony, listen, it's always a pleasure to have you on, my friend, and hear what you have to say. Enjoy your work. Tell folks again about your column where they can subscribe to it.
We have a website with 3 of my old newspaper buddies. TMG stands for the Media Guides, TMGcollegesports.com. We made a decision to do subscriptions and not do advertising and pop-up ads and all that stuff, so it's a small monthly fee. Got the whole country covered. One guy in L.A., one guy in Chicago, one guy in Boston, and me sitting down here down south in Atlanta, Georgia.
Doing a great job, Tony, as always. I appreciate your time. Look forward to catching up a little later in the season and enjoy it. Where are you going to be this weekend?
I am probably going to, just for logistics' sakes, go over and watch Georgia play Tennessee.
Yeah, well,
I don't expect it to be much.
Yeah,
of a
but I mean,
game,
we'll see.
But it's close to home.
You see an awful good football team in Georgia, that's for sure.
All right, buddy.
Thank you, Tony. Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, checking in with us to give his take. Always enjoy having Tony on the program. We'll do a couple of little business here, and then we got a clip for you to play of Dan Mullen and get your take on this. Coming up, we'll talk also to our friend David Moulton about a few other things around the league, get his assessment. Let's start out with, let me tell you about Center State Bank, since this is Center State Bank Tuesday. You can see what their slogan is right there. Center State Bank, centered on community and customer service. I talk about them all the time because it's more than a bank. It's a center. It's like an old town center. And back in the days of the general store, when you can go and actually hang out, have coffee, have a cookie, meet people. There are parties to be held upstairs on the second floor. Art gallery. They have all kind of cultural events. We do our quarterback club preseason meeting in there, and been weddings held in there. And do a great job of getting involved, serving our community. Again, they're centered on community and customer service. In terms of the bank, they have some core values they live by, including relationship banking, world-class service, long-term horizons on financials, and big things like locally market-driven. They take into consideration the market. They have 82 locations, probably more by now, in 30 Florida counties. Go on to centerstatebank.com. Find out more about how you can find a place near you. In Ocala, my bank, as you see here, this beautiful, looks like something from Gone the Wind, where we have our meetings and things on the second floor. That balcony, people watch parades up there. You can go check that out. You go by Silver Springs Boulevard and see that bank, and you can call them at 352-368-6800. Log on to centerstatebank.com and find out where the nearest bank is to you. Center State Bank, centered on community and customer service. get a look at there, there's a link for you where you can go on and check out some of the gear. And you saw those new shirts, which are being made as we speak. We're going to have those available for next week. If you've ordered them, if you haven't, you need to go on and get that Crown Prince collection of those shirts, which are so terrific. The Circle 15 and the G&K Shield shirts. They're reasonable. They're good-looking shirts, and they're being made as we speak. Get your pre-order in. Go to allfloridasportswear.com, the store, and check out that, plus many other items. I get asked all the time about hats, shirts. I'm wearing a shirt tonight from All Florida Sports. So good place for you to go. All Florida Sportswear. Check out the new Crown Prince collection. Okay, I want to tell you about Renstar Medical Research, and congratulations to our newest member, who is the Renstar Star of the Week. He's the Ocala Quarterback Club's Scott Bradley Trophy Weekly Player of the Week, and C.J. Strange from Wilson High School. You see the numbers he put up last week. Terrific job by C.J. He will be one we'll be noticing as the committee moves forward to make the selection of the outstanding player who will receive the Scott Bradley Trophy next spring in our special award ceremony. And these players get nominated every week. And congratulations this week to C.J. on a good night he had there and running and throwing the football. So congratulations. Meanwhile, Renstar Medical Research is a world-class facility for high-quality patent patient-centered clinical research. And they're renowned worldwide. They put on cutting-edge clinical research trials and for things like Alzheimer's and migraines, osteoarthritis, etc., and fibromyalgia. So the things that affect our community. So if you want to know more about how to be a part of these clinical research studies, you can go online, excuse me, at renstar.net and look at the information. And also you'll find out why they say Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Excuse me, remnants of a cold there. All right. I'm going to go ahead and roll this bite and let you look at it and get your thoughts. We have a couple minutes before we're going to get with David Moulton. And I loved what Dan Mullen did here. He was asked questions about what life is like in Starkville. And a lot of coaches would have said, well, that's my past. I don't want to deal with that now. Or, they're fine people. Let it go. Dan took his time and was quite whimsical and honest. And I enjoyed it, and I appreciate it very much. See what you think about Dan Mullen's press conference, all right?
Playing off that concept, what was the biggest adjustment to living in Mississippi?
I guess for me, I don't know. I go to work. I get up and I go to work and then go home. For my wife, probably a lot of online shopping. We get a lot of catalogs to the house. There's usually, like now, you go home and you always check the front doorstep because there's usually a package on there. And, it wasn't a real, like a Target or lots of stores close to Starkville. There are some, local stores and all that stuff. But I think that was an adjustment for my wife.
The other thing is the atmosphere is notoriously difficult.
Mm-hmm.
How much did you kind of work to even enhance that with the cowbells and the craziness? And what kind of atmosphere do you expect to be walking into?
Well, I spent 9 years creating the atmosphere, I think. So I get to go see what it's like on what type of atmosphere that we spent 9 years. I spent 9 years trying to create. Whether it was how the team ran on the field to the entrance to. Playing I remember sitting with marketing people, said we need to create this type of entrance, and this is what I want the entrance to look like. I said before the fourth quarter, we're going to go play Don't Stop Believing, and so I spent 9 years trying to create a tradition, and so I thought that was pretty cool. That now I get to go back, I guess, and see what it's like to be on the other sideline of the tradition we created.
Now, didn't the SEC at the spring meetings a couple years ago, they put some rule in that was kind of focused on the cowbells? And then
there's a 100% cowbell rule, and somehow we were able to work to get that passed while I was there, that you could actually ring the cowbell, but you can only ring it at certain times, and so you had to ring responsibly during the course of the game.
Yeah.
And Yeah, that was. Yeah, a lot of people didn't think that rule would ever pass, and somehow I was able to get that passed and through the coaches.
Oh, you wanted it?
Yeah.
Attorney, because they outlawed it.
They outlawed it.
Oh.
You can bring them, but only.
I got you.
So the rule was it was going to be outlawed. To be honest, I said, okay, then outlaw it. We just won't enforce it. We'll let everybody bring them in. I said, or you can sign off on this rule that says you can only ring at certain times. And so the coaches said, well, we might as well have it. If you're going to bring them in anyways, we might as well try to enforce it. And so
It's a fine, though, if they don't ring
if they ring after someone breaks the huddle, it's
Yeah.
a fine.
So you think they're going to ring responsibly this weekend, or are they going to pay the fine?
I don't know about that now.
There you go. Don't know about that now. That was pretty funny. Let's get back to our video here, and talk about that. What do you think? What was your thoughts about his comments there? I thought he was very honest. I liked the fact that he addressed the issue, and that he had a little touch of humor in there about Target and stores. I mean, look, it was the rule. It was rural America, and what you didn't hear in that was the part about him saying that he appreciated how much he was accepted by people down there. And he said, being a Yankee, that we were accepted, and he got to like those people a lot, and so it's good. It's a good thing, and so we'll see. And when we ask about whether or not, when he was asked about that, what that meant, he said how they'd react. He said, well. He said, we'll see how they react. I don't know how they'll react yet. He said, I don't imagine they'll show a lot of that in their gratitude to me, as he pointed out. So no, they won't be doing that for sure. So it's going to be interesting. It's a really good story, I think, and one that I'm looking forward to seeing how the turnout is. I'm trying to reach David Moulton. Don't know if we have him online. Do we have you, David? Hello, David.
Hey, buddy.
Oh, is that you, David? Hello, David.
I'm here.
Okay, good. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, kind of. All right. Are you awake, David?
No, I'm awake. We're having a major thunderstorm here.
Oh, are you? Okay. You all right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but while I was on hold, it just sounded weird. So
I heard some noises.
Fine.
Yeah, I heard some noises there that sounded kind of funny. Well, hopefully no lightning, man. It's a bad place for lightning down there. So if you get to a point where you're in danger, holler at me, and we'll just do this another time for sure. But meanwhile, we had a clip on just from Dan Mullen. There was a press conference. You probably saw some of it, talking about life in Starkville, what it was like by having built that program and how he'd be received. And he was pretty good about it. I thought he was straight up about the answers. And I love the part about the cowbells and about how he said they now can ring, but ring responsibly. It sounds like a New Year's Eve party when you go out for a cocktail or something, So ringing responsibly. So I don't know. I'm a little disappointed in CBS, my old network, your network now. I know there are reasons for doing it because you thought Georgia and Tennessee would be a good matchup, but a 32-point game like that against a team that's in the dumpster is not exactly what you call a good storyline. And I know you don't make those decisions, but
Buddy, the important thing is the decision wasn't made Sunday.
No, I know that.
The decision was made the week. Yeah. Right. Well, that's pretty important. Yeah. I mean, if you make the decision 12 days out, you're making it before Tennessee, throws up all over itself against Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just say the game goes according to what the spread said it was. Florida wins 24-20. Then, and I know fans don't want to hear this, but it's the ratings game. If Tennessee was representative, Tennessee, Georgia is still going to outrate Florida, Mississippi State.
Got Atlanta and everything. I understand all that.
Mississippi State just doesn't rate. That's the problem.
Yeah, I understand the market size and all that sort of stuff. It's just too bad that the judgments. I mean, such a good story,
I mean, my goodness. I mean, in fact, this is year 13, buddy, and I'm trying to think. 2011 was a really bad year for us because LSU and Alabama were so dominant. And we just aired one blowout after another, after another. And I still don't think we had a line that was this big in 2011 when teams were just facing Alabama and LSU and lining up for slaughter.
Yeah.
I mean, this is remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it is. And look, is it good or bad for football to have two teams like this, David?
Oh, it's good. It's good. Because dynasties, greatness, the bellwether franchises, they're what drive the train in the sport. And, I'd much rather have 5 or 6 great programs and others trying to reach it than only have 1 or 2 and a whole bunch of pretty good. So, and buddy, we've gone through this. If you look up the top 10 in the 70s and the 80s, for most of those decades, 6 or 7 of the teams that are in the top 10 now were in the top 10 then, or damn close to it. So, college football has had this with relatively the same schools throughout. Georgia only had a brief moment with Herschel. Now it looks as if Georgia, is going to reach unprecedented heights. But, Notre Dame, Alabama, Ohio State, Penn State, Oklahoma. I mean, these schools have picked a decade, and pretty much these schools have been in the top 10.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so now, David, you do a show, obviously, there in Southwest Florida on the Fox station, you and Miller, and you do your ESPNU on Sirius. You travel with the CBS broadcast team and do some work with Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson, and you get to see a lot of football. And you're a third of the way in now. You're beyond it. This will be the next third. In your assessment of what you see out there, it's some pretty obvious things. The juggernauts that we mentioned, who are tearing up the league, and then you've got the middle ground teams who are trying to see what they're going to be. Without question, Kentucky's a very good story. LSU could be a good story. Well, it will be either way. And then we have the other also-rans like Texas A&M, Florida, South Carolina, etc. We all concede that the two best teams probably will be there in Atlanta, but what do you see trending upward or trending downward in those next few teams?
But see, buddy, I'm fascinated by the second tier.
Me too.
I mean, all Alabama and Georgia have done is live up to expectations. But, I mean, I'm fascinated by Florida. We quite frankly didn't know what this season, we don't know week to week what we're getting from Florida. I find that interesting. I really do. Texas A&M, for that matter, they played Clemson and Alabama in this first month. And they still have a nice little tough stretch here coming up. But, I mean, clearly they're different under Jimbo. You can tell. And, are they going to achieve anything great this year? I don't know. I still don't know that they've got the quarterback that can lead them to where they need to go. But, the LSU-Florida game, buddy, would it shock you if the winner of LSU-Florida emerges as the third best team in the conference when all is said and done and is a springboard? I mean, if LSU beats Florida, I mean, they play Georgia the next week, but they'll probably host Alabama in early November with first place in the West at stake. I mean, who the heck would have thought that 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, no question about it.
So I'm actually fascinated by the next run. How about Kentucky? How about Kentucky?
Great story.
Maybe Stoops, in the same day that, CBS is getting ready for LSU, Alabama in prime time, and the 3:30 game on that day, I'm pretty sure, the week before Georgia hosts Auburn and the week after they play the Gators, they have to sneak into Lexington, Kentucky 3 days before the college basketball season starts and play arguably the biggest game that Kentucky has hosted since Paul Bear Bryant was their coach. I mean, that's still possible. So I'm actually fascinated by the second tier because in all likelihood, Alabama and Georgia are a rung better than everybody else. But I'm just interested to see, quite frankly, who's going to be in the two-hole on both sides.
I am
think
too.
It's compelling.
I like Kentucky trending upward right now, but then again, when you start playing the teams that have more talent, they have a third team lineman coming in there. You're playing your first team trying to get through it. It catches up to you in a long season. I hope Kentucky does well. I think they'll be a good representative to be in there and be competitive, knock off some of the – LSU just always seems like they're just on one step away from self-destruction to me. And they have had good luck with Joe Burrow, not high percentage rates, but certainly not turning the ball over. I like the job that Orgeron's done this year. LSU just seems to always have some habit of stepping on a landmine somewhere. Florida trending upward. I want to see more. I like the way they play defense a lot. Now, you don't get 6 turnovers. By the way, they do lead the nation in takeaways, and I love their little note on the press on the heading. It says, no backpacks, no turnover change, just takeaways, which I think is a wonderful way of putting it. And so turnovers, you can't count on turnovers to live. You cannot live on turnovers like you can't live on making 3-footers in golf. Anyway, that's my take on it. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I will say this. I think you can live on turnovers for a year. Like sometimes it's the Canes did it last year, for goodness sakes, all until the Pitt game, the last game of the regular season. They really, if you examine them closely, were absolutely living on. They were +2 damn near every game on average. I mean, it's tough to lose when you're +2. I mean, the Gators. I would argue, buddy, last year the Gators were better defensively than they are right now, but they forced 4 fumbles all of last season. 4. They've already forced 10. And even though they're a little vulnerable to being run on up front, when you're turning the ball over, and, for goodness sakes, Florida had started 4 possessions inside the Tennessee 21 and 5 possessions in Tennessee territory in a game. I mean, it doesn't matter how many yards you're giving up. I mean, they gave up over 200 yards in the first half. I don't know how many people knew that because it was, 26-3? And 33-3 a minute into the third quarter.
It was, yeah.
I mean, so, but I think you can live off turnovers for a year, but it's tough to. At some point, usually you end up having a day where you're even in the turnover margin and you need to rely on something else. But, yeah, I think you can have a year where the ball just bounces your way.
I don't know the last time I've seen a player make as big a difference as David Reese did for this defense. And I'm going to confess, I'm a fan. I like his enthusiasm. I like the way he plays. I like his dad, by the way. His dad listens and watches. He wrote us a note saying, thank you for the kind words. He's working hard, loves playing for the Gators. Very positive. He is a leader on defense and a guy who really stepped up his game and brought that defense up. Now, are they level of Georgia and Alabama? No, but he's a scrapper, and he makes tackles. He led the team in tackles. So little things like that. A player here, a player there. And we've not yet seen, and I know I'm waxing optimistic here, we've not seen Van Jefferson's best. He hasn't got many balls. Grimes is still a world-class receiver. Other players, and now we're going to see whether or not Dameon Pierce is the real thing if he gets some carries. This kid's broken 2 long runs already, and he's a third-string running back. What's for? So now it's a question of whether they can get enough linemen. And this is what, as Will Muschamp said, the SEC is a line of scrimmage league, and you agree with that, I know. But it would be fun to see Kentucky, LSU, Florida giving it a go, wouldn't it?
Well, here's the thing about Kentucky. If they don't get banged up, because I'll agree with you, their 85 aren't as good as about 8 other teams' 85. But what they have together right now is the best thing they've had since 07. And think about what they've done up front, buddy. They took it to the Gators up front. They took it to Mississippi State up front. And that's a heralded group up front. That's every bit as good as what they had up front in 2014. They may not have a Fletcher Cox on that line, but the line as a whole may be deeper. And Kentucky only had to throw the ball 14 13 times in whooping Mississippi State on Saturday, which to me, buddy, let's flip it now. There's a very good chance that Florida is going to get Mississippi State's best, which to me then makes this a true litmus test game. On the road, the likelihood is they'll get Mississippi State's best shot. Coming off being embarrassed last week, they've had the game circled, the whole deal.
Sure.
And Mississippi State was a legitimate preseason top 15 or at worst top 20 team. So if the Gators go in there and it's a heavyweight fight, then all of a sudden you turn around and you go, I'll be damned. We went from a 4-win team to maybe a 4-win month, or we went from a 4-win team to we're a legitimate top 20 team 1 month into this regime. So I do think this is the first litmus test game of the year for the Gators.
Kind of a litmus test although the team wasn't very good. Go on the road, first time for Felipe Franks, etc. But now every time you gotta pass another test each week to get better. We'll see. And quite frankly, I thought Florida might be 4-0 going into this game. They're not. But on the other hand, what if they end up beating Mississippi State, which they could? You don't ever know. So, and remember, it is a first-year coach. When everybody was telling me how great Joe Moorhead is, he's an excellent coach. I want to remind them, first-year coaches is not easy. Ask Scott Frost, by the way, and a few others. You can't go in there and put in a new system and try to make it work. So it's they're not going to have to mail that game in. They'll have to be played. David, the quarterback situation in Alabama is ridiculous. Tua right now is the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, and if they gave it tomorrow, and he hadn't even played a fourth quarter. How good is this guy?
He's very special. Danielson compared him to Drew Brees in terms of some of the traits that he brings to the table. He has his awareness, his vision that he has not seen on Saturdays except for Drew Brees. He does have gifts that you can't, teach. And he made 4 or 5 throws on Saturday under duress. I mean, releasing it right as he's getting hit. And Buddy, all but one throw was right on the money, and 2 of them were in very tight coverage. So even, you look at it and you see a game that wasn't that competitive, and you think, oh, they're just having an easy time of it. But even the few times this year that he's been pressured and tested, and so far he has risen to it. Now, he's not going to throw a pass in the fourth quarter until November. I mean, look at their schedule coming up here. I don't think he's going to play in the fourth quarter the next 4 games either. Yeah. So, but, Alabama's schedule's backloaded. LSU on the road, Mississippi State at home, then Auburn, and then SEC title game. So, and the one thing that is happening, Buddy, I know we got 2 juggernauts right now in the SEC, but, if Notre Dame beats Stanford Saturday, that could very well cost a conference a bid, because if Notre Dame can win Saturday, they're going to be clear favorites over everybody else on their schedule. And maybe Brian Kelly made one of the coaching moves of his life in switching quarterbacks before it was too late.
Yeah, that was gutsy. All right, let me get a moment with you about Tiger Woods, because while we talk football here, you and I both love it. We can talk all the time. We do all year round. That was a special thing we saw. We talked about it on the show last night. In addition to the Tiger's magnificent performance and his ability to stay with this and fight the demons for a year and get through all this. And at the time, it reminded me, and you would know a little about Ben Hogan and what happened to him when he got in a car wreck. It was before my time, but I saw the movie and I read the stories about him coming back from a crippled self, much like Tiger was, from being that big wreck, and then winning the U.S. Open. And Tiger coming back like he did, almost winning the FedEx Cup at the same time. And the way he played, that was pure joy to watch. It was one for the ages.
Well, he also, Buddy, had become something that we never envisioned that he could become. He became both the underdog, which he never imagined when he was reaching his heights from 96 to 09 there before he backed out of his driveway, that Tiger would ever be the underdog. We also never imagined that Tiger was, victim is not the word that I'm looking for, but he fell off his pedestal there.
Yeah.
And so he became an underdog with a great comeback story. And we never envisioned him having either. We always envisioned him being at the top and reigning supreme. And then when you consider it was literally a year ago last week at this very tournament that Tiger was quoted as saying, "I don't know what my future in golf will be."
Mm-hmm. Couldn't swing a club.
And he played 3 tournaments in over 2 years. 3 tournaments. I mean, buddy, one of the last times we saw him play, he was sculling chips from one side of the green to the other. He had the yips with his chips.
Yips with his chips.
That was one of his 3 tournaments that we saw him play in. He was an absolute physical and mental mess. And in his 40s, he puts it all together and produces this season in which he led the British Open with 9 holes to play and shot a great weekend and finished second in a PGA and went from 1,199th in the world to 13th and now the betting favorite for next year's Masters. Yeah, it is all-time stuff.
It's got to be fun to see if the Americans can finally turn the tide over the Ryder Cup, too, this weekend. So,
93 is the last time since we won across the pond.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's always a joy to talk with you, David. Thanks for your input. Again, people can catch you. I don't know when. I just hear you on the radio. I just turn on my show, and you're there. Sometimes you're on with Doring and on different things. I know you kind of hit and miss, but you're around. You're busy this time of year. And now you're working a big-time TV job, too. Dude, pick a job, will you? You got 9.
6 of them. Officially 6. Listen, I'm looking forward to the Gators in the land of cowbells.
Yes, that'll be fun. That'll be fun.
I hope they play well and then see where the chips fall.
Just remember, they got to ring responsibly. That was a line from Mullen's press conference. All right, my man. Thanks, David Moulton. Appreciate it, buddy.
Buddy, be good.
Thank you. Always enjoy David's time. So let me get a couple of business in here. We'll have some final thoughts on tonight's show. There's a group of guys who are going to be deciding these tickets either late tonight or tomorrow morning as in terms of posts and what have you. I don't know what they got in mind, but they'll make that decision. These are Mississippi State tickets. You have to be able to go to take the tickets. If you're not going to go, you can't sell the tickets, okay? So you have to be able to go. If you're not going to go, give them to somebody who is going to go, fine, all right? They'll take care of that information for you, and they'll let us know tonight or in the morning. We'll post on the page who the winner is. You can make your plans accordingly. All right, let's take a quick break here and tell you about Daniel Hightower. David's picture.
No one ever plans a car accident. Having a plan after you've been in one, however, can make a world of difference. Daniel L. Hightower has been fighting for accident victim justice in Ocala and statewide since 1976. After meeting with Dan and his team, you'll know your case matters, that you matter, and that Dan will fight hard to get you just results. If you've been severely injured through no fault of your own by a careless or reckless driver, you need Daniel L. Hightower.
'76. Thank you for your support on this program. We do appreciate that. Speaking of support, hey, look, it's time. Check out you're going to need this, all right? Let's be honest about it. And if not this, something similar. And this is Tupperware. If you millennials only knew what Tupperware used to be, and is again, by the way, very popular for use in your home, for use on tailgates. You see this microwave pressure cooker, which can feed a whole family, and you can put that in the microwave, and you can cook whole meals in there. So that's just one of the items that Jen has. Jen Lay, of course, is your Tupperware lady. Jen Lay, look at that address, jenlay.mytupperware.com. You can go online and go to her Facebook page or the website and pick out what you like. and order from her there. You might want it for tailgating. You might have some gifts. There's a whole gift guide in there. My wife bought 2 things for gifts, make nice gifts. So check them out. Go to jenlay.mytupperware.com to purchase a product or search Tupperware, Tupperware Jen on Facebook. It's a perfect way to celebrate football season and serve that GNK tailgater spread. So check it out, Jen Lay. Let's see here. One more piece of business, and we will get back to the final closing of the show, and that would be Mark's Prime. I was so disappointed that I couldn't go to eat on Friday night, that we had a reservation all ready to go. My mouth was watering. I'm thinking, this is the night I'm going to try that dish I keep seeing on my show. And that, of course, is a special. They don't even call it surf and turf. It's beyond that. It's spectacular. My wife and I could split that. But Mark's Prime does beautiful dishes like this, and they have world-class service. They really do take pride in their service. And I'm a big, when I go to a nice restaurant, I want service with it. I'm sorry, I like people being there when I need something. I like people who get the order right. I like people who are cheerful. John Madden always said about people who are overly friendly who are waiters, I don't want a relationship, I just want dinner. And that sounds a little snooty, I know, but there's places like this, you go there with your friends for special occasions. You want to have time for your conversation with your friends and not someone's in your face saying, let me tell you about the specials. That drives me insane. They're professional waiters at Mark's Prime Steakhouse and Seafood with terrific food, including the fresh seafood and the premium wines, the great fresh vegetables. I love their sauteed spinach, among other things. Check them out. You can go online to marksprimesteakhouse.com, or you can call them in Gainesville at 352-336-0077 Ocala, which is where I go, 352-402-0097. They have complimentary valet parking. Mark's Prime Steakhouse. Tell them buddy sent you. Hope I can get there. All right, so we're going to wrap up the night. That's been a good show. Thanks very much for participating, and we'll go through our last piece of business there. Here's I won't get into this tonight, but Bianchi had a ridiculous post today, and talking about does Scott Frost regret leaving UCF for Nebraska? Well, duh, of course he does, says Bianchi. Here's my column. Well, come on, Mike. Maybe we'll catch up with him. He went on to tell his side of that. I'll use this maybe tomorrow. A couple of interesting tweets. Chauncey Gardner Johnson said, don't ask about no chain, just know we lead the way. No chain, no backpacks, whatever, right? And also, Jefferson C.C. Judge says, I think for the outside world, if we do win this game, they'll definitely give us some respect we deserve. Well, C.C., glad to see you getting your act together and earning that respect as well. Again, it's a 6 o'clock kickoff our time on Saturday. So other pretty good games here, but not in the SEC. 7:30 game, Ohio State, Penn State, that whiteout in Happy Valley. Notre Dame game, Stanford Notre Dame, and David talked about, is on at 7:30. We'll be watching maybe the second half of that. And then I can't stay up for this one. There's late games. BYU at Washington, 8:30. So that's what's happening there. So tomorrow night, if all goes well, we'll have Edgar Thompson from the Sentinels, one of your favorites always. Also, we'll have Chris Doering, who we'll chat with in a pre-recorded message coming up at the Ocala Quarterback Club. And we remind you about your shirts now. If you're serious about this, go to allfloridasports.com and get those special LSU shirts, the Circle 15. It's going to be Tim Tebow's big weekend and Ring of Fame, and so we're celebrating it by having our own circle around 15 and with the words of our organization. So check them out if you haven't. You might want to know, and Tony's waiting for you. You can pre-order, like we said, and check that out. All right? Otherwise, thanks to my guest tonight. Thanks very much for all the work Chad did on putting together the information or the clip on Mullen. I appreciate Tony Barnhart being here. Also, David Moulton. And thanks for the people from the team who are putting together the contest to draw the tickets to the winner. Good luck to you out there, whoever's in it. All right? I'll say good night from GNK.